point of no return. Lights become too bright to see. The more I try, the less I can see. The truth awaits behind that wall.
Hey everyone, this is Rob with the Four Songs Podcast. So I'm just going to be blunt here. This is the most important and impactful interview I've ever done. Certainly every interview for this show is important to me and hopefully to however many listeners I have. But this one, this is going to stick with me for a while. My guest is Lisset Diaz, the incredibly talented singer and songwriter of the Cuban-born, Nashville-based Sweet Lizzie Project. If anyone has heard this show before or follows me online, you know I've become a big fan of the band. Lisset has made a number of appearances here, and most recently, she and Sweet Lizzie Project guitarist Miguel Comas contributed a few songs to the Save Our Stages video benefit we released earlier this summer. But let's be honest, this is much bigger than music. If you've been watching the news lately, you're probably aware of the massive protests going on in Cuba against the communist government. You probably also know that any kinds of demonstration against the regime are rare and incredibly risky. People are literally putting their lives on the line, not just because there's a pandemic still raging, but also because the Cuban government does not tolerate dissent. And you may have also noticed that since the protests began on July 11th, there's not been much of an update because the Cuban government has shut off internet access to its citizens. So there's really no way of knowing what's going on in Cuba right now unless you are there. Since the protests started, Lisset has been active on social media in support of the Cuban people taking the streets. As you can imagine, this is an incredibly painful time for Lisset and her bandmates, along with anyone who has family in Cuba. While inspired by the bravery of the protesters, Lisset and her bandmates have no way of knowing if their family and friends are safe. They do not know what's happening on the island, or even if the protests are still occurring. So over the next 30 minutes or so, Lisset describes the frustration of not knowing what's going on, her solidarity with the protesters, and her unabashed views of the Cuban government. Now, this is a show about music, so we talk about SLP's forthcoming album, Pirate Radio, which the band is still recording. The title, Pirate Radio, is a nod to the restrictions the Cuban government used to impose on rock music in the 70s, when owning a Beatles record could literally land you in jail. At the time, many Cubans built their own pirate radios to tune in to U.S. stations and listen to rock and roll. And we talk about two songs from the band's 2020 album, Technicolor, These Words, which was the last song she wrote before coming to the U.S., and Ain't Nobody to Call, which is a day in the life in Havana. But most of all, Lisset bravely talks about her hopes and her fears for her country. I say bravely because by speaking out, she knows there's a chance she may never be able to return to Cuba again as long as the current regime is in power. Speaking out is something we take for granted here, but in Cuba it can cost you your life and your country. And to be clear, as much as we Americans like to think everything is about us, this isn't a right or left thing. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing. It's about one thing and one thing only: the Cuban people. And because Lisset has taken such a huge risk by even talking to me, we owe it to her to listen. I encourage anyone within earshot to hear this episode and share it with a friend and a family member. There's not much we can do here in the U.S. to help the Cuban people, but one thing we can do is spread awareness and acknowledge the sacrifices that the protests and Lisset are making and taking on a daily basis. So with that, I humbly welcome Lisset Diaz back to Four Songs.
Thank you for having me.
Really wanted to just get your sense as to what's going on in Cuba right now. We've talked a bit about this in prior interviews, but it seems like things are happening where you're in your home country. So I just wanted to just first kind of tell us what's going on.
Well, it's really hard for us, Cubans that are outside the island. That it's really hard for us to get a reliable source of information because all we're getting are videos from people in the streets. You can't trust the official press, the Cuban official press. It's all lies. So and they need internet to be able to upload these videos. So that's the first thing that the government stopped when this sort of revolution or the protests started. It's that they just stopped the internet service. So it's been hard because then you don't know if the videos are new or they're from the day before. So you don't know what's really happening in the streets in the moment you are, looking for answers. It seems like the first day, that was, I think it was July 11th. It was last Sunday, when they didn't know, because nobody knew this was going to happen that day. That's when we got lots of videos of this spontaneous protests all over the country, pacific protests, no violence, just people were asking for freedom, food. We're hungry, we want freedom. They were of course criticizing the president. The problem was the way the Cuban government, the dictatorship, reacted to these protests. Basically, the president, Diaz-Canel, sent the other part of the country to the streets to fight these people. That's what he said, which was terrible, because, well, first of all, there's a pandemic that's been terrible in the last months in Cuba. Like, people are dying, and on top of that, they don't have food, they don't have medicines, they don't have hospitals, they don't have anything. It's been really, really bad lately. So and I think the worst is yet to come, because all these gatherings are not going to be good for, the pandemic is going to keep, the virus is going to keep spreading. So we just have to wait and see what's going to happen in the next few weeks or whatever. So what happened after the Pacific protests is that the police and basically the army just violently, and aggressively just stopped the protesters, and there are videos. There's no way. I mean, it's been really sad and really tough to watch, especially, like, for us, we've never seen anything like that in our country, for many reasons. We're too young to remember things that happened, maybe, I don't know, 20 something years ago. In 1994, something similar happened, but I was not even aware of that. Like, I didn't know. And because of the dictatorship, you don't get to see this in Cuba very often. Like, people protesting, people expressing themselves, that's never happened before. And if it happens, then we didn't have internet in Cuba 3 years ago. Right before I came here, internet was very, very, very limited. So it was impossible to spread the awareness of whatever was happening in Cuba. This time is different. This time, every time something happens, there's a phone watching. And again, it's complicated, because I've never felt more proud of my people, of how brave they were. But at the same time, it's sad, and we're worried about our family and friends, and we don't want anything bad to happen to them. And again, we don't have a reliable source of information, so it's frustrating. And then on top of that, all the lies from the government is terrible. I hope that whatever happened, I don't really know. I don't even know if it's still happening. I don't think there are people in the streets right now. The police is everywhere, all over the country. Every corner, every block in the city has a couple of police officers. So, and they have guns, they have weapons. That's the other thing. The Cuban people, we don't have guns. I've never seen a gun in my life. I've never fired a weapon, and of course they don't have that either. So it's the people with stones and sticks against the army with fire guns. It's unbelievable. It really is.
So how big of a risk are the people protesting and taking then? I mean, it seems like it literally is their lives.
Oh yeah, I mean, not only, I mean, yeah, of course, the guns and the fact that the army is there, that's a risk definitely. But even before that, people were risking their lives by putting themselves out there with a pandemic happening and with the virus out there. So if they were so desperate to do that, it's because the government is worse than the virus. And whatever their situation is worse than the virus. So, and it's this is not the result of whatever particular crisis we're having right now. It's 62 years of dictatorship. Nobody understands that. I've had conversations and discussions, healthy discussions with people here, because it's not about left or right. It's not about, like, people here try to associate whatever is happening in Cuba with Democrats or Republicans. If you cannot understand, there's no way that you can make assumptions or try to understand the situation in Cuba based on the system the United States have. There's just no way. So people are tired.
Yeah, I mean,
I was tired when I came here, and they're just, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if this is gonna last. I don't know I don't think people are gonna forget, because even if the starting point of this protest was a crisis, circumstantial, because of the pandemic and all that, even if that was a problem, the way the government reacted and what the president said, I don't think people are going to forget that. I'm not going to forget. So even if things get better or protests stop, the president and the current administration, they, in my opinion, they need to leave right now. And that's not going to happen. But that's what I feel. That's what I want.
So, and we were talking about why now, and I'm wondering, as you mentioned the internet, is that, I know now they're blocking it, but it seems like within a couple of years of getting the internet, people started. I'm curious what effect you think that had on just helping the Cuban people just learn more, to see outside. I mean, is that a player, like one reason why that's happening now, that they're so willing to take these risks because of what they see outside?
Absolutely. Like for the Cuban government, the strategy of making the access to internet basically illegal, it was a great strategy, because people didn't know better than whatever the official press or the TV was telling them, and everything the TV and the official press tell you since you're a kid is that this is the best country in the world, and what we have here, you're not going to find it anywhere else, and capitalism is the worst, and the people die, and you don't have free education, and you don't have free healthcare, and just a series of things that, hey, I know no place or system is perfect, but people deserve to know their options and just decide and compare. And even if there are a lot of things here that are wrong and things need to change like everywhere else, forgetting about that. This is not about America, this is not about Spain or Germany or what, this is about Cuba, and it's just deeply wrong, the situation and the way they do things there. I think that for sure the fact that they now have internet is another source of information, so they can see what's happening out there. They can see the world.
So what can people here do to help?
Well, right now there are many things that, like, there are several campaigns that like SOS Cuba. What most of Cubans are trying to do is, spread the awareness, because again, a lot of other countries or just people in the world still think that Cuba is perfect, that everything's okay, and that this is just 3 or 4 radical citizens with a bad behavior and not well educated. That's what they think, because that's the government version of what's been happening this last 4 days. So we're trying to change that. That's why I agreed to this podcast, and that's why I'm taking my time to reply every single message and all the questions, because people need to know what's happening in Cuba, because the government won't let them know. So that's one thing. There are different groups of people. I'm not sure if there's like an organization that is collecting like medicines or food, but some individuals are I know some people in Spain, some people in Miami, who are trying to get these things to the people in Cuba, and that's the way we can help right now. It would definitely help if people had internet all the time, and they wouldn't have to wait for the government to restore the service whenever they think the situation is safe to be filmed or recorded again. But I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, something that you said, though, about people have phones and they can take pictures of it now. I mean, that seems to be, I mean, that's the transparency, I guess, is what's different. And that the message for time can get out. And I mean, it's interesting because I just did an interview with an Irish musician. We were talking about some of his songs he wrote in the 90s, and one was called Fire of Freedom. And he said, once he was talking about Northern Ireland and South Africa and other countries, and he said, once a country gets the taste for freedom, it never goes away. And you see that here too. Like, this is the beginning of something really, really big.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening to me. When I got here, I was not. It's not like, oh, I'm the United States now. I can go on social media and say whatever I want. I never did that because I was still afraid. It was 26 years of my life listening to my mom saying, hey, if they ask you, you have to say this, and you don't want to protest, you don't want to, just listen and keep your lips sealed. That's just the way it is, and you get used to that, so it takes time for you to start saying things, saying what you feel, what you believe. So, and it's been happening to me. So if it's happening to me and I'm here, the only difference is that I feel more protected here. I feel like I can do it and nothing's going to happen to me. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. But the problem is that you still have friends and family in Cuba, and you have like your house, and eventually you want to go back to your country, and you want to see that, and you want to, it's your country,
right?
And they can decide that you're not welcome anymore. So that could be my case. That could be our case in the future. We don't know. We don't know the way they're going to react. But I mean, I know this for a fact. It happens all the time. Or they let you in and then you go straight to jail. By the way, from these protests that some people think it's over now, it's all quiet. There's a lot of people missing. We still don't know if how many people died. We don't know that. So it's really complicated. But what I was saying is that if I'm feeling this, if I have this feeling of freedom myself, they have it too. I know they're not gonna forget this, and they're not gonna let this die.
So how important then, your passion is obviously, it's a lot of things, but music is an incredible strong passion of yours. How important is music right now and in Cuba too, that having that art form to express yourself?
Well, to me, it's very important. because I'm a musician and I've used music for years to express myself. I think, writing songs in English in Cuba was the way I found to keep it for myself, because they were not going to understand. Since last year, November last year, there was a hunger strike in Cuba. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was called Movimiento San Isidro. It was not as big as this that happened right now. It was a very small group of people, but they got a lot of press. So we found out, and that was actually the first time that I saw the way the government was able to react, and the way they were capable of treating people when they feel like there was a threat. And that was a point of no return for me, and for the band in general. And we all, it's not like we all agree on everything. We all have our points of view, but we live here now. We feel like we can live with that. You can have your opinion, I can have mine, and we can all still have dinner together, and that's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But that was a point of no return for me, because the violence was, again, it was cruel, and they made a lot of people to wake up from the situation that was happening, and that the things that you can do, and that they're actually possible. It's not, you can do it if you want to. And they did it. So since that moment, we started writing this album, which is going to be the next album of the band. And that's pretty much what I've been doing this year, writing and trying to put all this frustration and all this sadness and all this anger, why not, on these songs. So the record is going to be called Pirate Radio, because that was a way back in the 70s. That was a way Cuban people were able to listen to rock music when it was illegal, because it was illegal for some time, like seriously illegal. Like you could go to jail or some sort of concentration camps just because of the possession of a record of the Beatles. That simple. People used to like build handmade like radios in their homes to be able to get these secret frequencies and crack the codes to be able to listen to this music. There was a show called Beaker Street, I think it was Miami. There was another one in from Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's very interesting actually. And it's a story. I mean, that was the inspiration for the record, but it represents all the repression, all the different phases of the dictatorship in Cuba. So if you're from the 70s and you were in Cuba and you remember what happened, then you're going to understand the song. But if you're just a teenager right now going through the situation that Cuba has, then you're going to understand it as well. And if you're not Cuban at all, it could be any other liberation movement or social movement. So that's a record about, and the difference this time is that we're doing it in both languages. It's going to be in English, and there's going to be a version, like a whole different album with the same songs in Spanish. So this time we want people in Cuba and Spanish speaking people to know what's going on, and we're going to explain it loud and clear, because that's what we can do.
That sounds, can't wait to hear that. But you mentioned the point of no return. That's a line in your song, These Words. You've addressed some of these issues in songs that you've already released. So is there like a song like These Words? How did you channel that frustration? Or is that about some of these issues? Or is that,
Well, that song was about, and I was I was going through the lyrics in my head this morning when you asked me about the song. And honestly, when I wrote the song, it was just because of a personal issue. It was the last song I wrote before coming to the States, and I was just scared. But the truth is that it was such a tough decision to make because I didn't have a choice.
Near that point of no return, lights become too bright to see. The more I try, the less I can see the truth awaits behind that wall. If it's written in the stars, if it's meant to be real, even when it seems too dark, there is nothing to fear. And the end, these words have no meaning. And the end, I don't need no words at all.
Because I knew I had to come here to be able to do certain things that I was not going to be able to do in Cuba because of all the reasons I've explained before. So even though it was not written, it was not about this that is happening right now. It's just another proof or another, another chapter of frustration and all those lives that all the people who couldn't make it in Cuba.
Memories will blind my mind. Reasons won't feel good enough, but something bigger guides my heart. I struggled up the hill. I was looking for peace till the morning light shone. I will wait patiently, and the end, these words have no meaning.
Just because you have to find another way. And I was lucky enough to be able to find the other way, but some people just are still there, and now they are out in the streets screaming and fighting the police. The song definitely fits the situation, and at the same time it reminds me where I come from and why I need to keep speaking up and saying what I believe and what I feel about my country, because I don't forget.
I don't need no words at all. And the end, these words have no meaning. And the end, I don't need no words at all.
And Ain't Nobody to Call too. I think that has a real, almost, that seems like it could be a direct reaction to a couple things. But
Yeah, well, it's a song about La Habana, right? And all the things that you see there, but it's just the spirit of the song is different than what I'm feeling right now.
Okay.
that song is more about it's a description of all the different things that you can see in La Habana, including, you know, the good things, the bad things. But I just, in general, it's just a thing that you get used to, and that's just is the way it is. And while you're there, or while I was there, you feel like there's nothing you can change. And that's the general feeling of the Cuban people. There's nothing you can change until now. They just tasted the, you know, that feeling that when you feel like you can actually, what you do actually matters, and that you can change things, important things. But that's ain't nobody to call, because it's at the end of the day, it's just you, and you have to keep doing whatever you're doing to survive, and no one's gonna come and help you. I mean, you have your friends, but your friends are in the same situation as you are, so everybody's together, but we're all alone.
In the end, it never lasts. I have a past that's just a blast. In the end, it never lasts. I have a past that's just a blast. In the end, it never lasts. I have a past that's just a blast.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time, Lisset. As we wrap up, what gives you hope right now?
I don't know. I keep going over the videos, all the things that I've seen during the weekend, and I start crying. Sometimes I laugh because Cubans are special for sure, and they can make something funny out of a very unfortunate situation, and that's the way we've managed to survive all these years. But I feel like something really special happened, and they're not gonna forget. I'm not gonna forget, and we're gonna keep pushing and trying to keep this feeling alive. I feel very, very proud of some of those images. Obviously not the government, that was shame on them, and then the police, but the people. I saw a couple of very heroic situations that made me feel like, wow, I'm happy to be Cuban. I'm very proud of being Cuban, which it's not a feeling that I take for granted.
Well, thank you so much, Lisset. This is probably not the easiest thing to do, so keep you and your family in our prayers, and thank you very much. And if there's anything we can do, I guess as we wrap up, just if there's one thing you think we can all do to help, what is it?
You are already helping me and helping us by having this conversation with me and helping me put the word out there about what's happening in my country. So thank you so much.
Thank you again to Lisset Diaz for giving me so much of her time. Thank you for listening. Please share this with your friends and family who care about what's happening in Cuba. Spread the awareness and keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Can't wait to hear Sweet Lizzie Project's new album, Pirate Radio. So hopefully we'll bring her back when that comes out. And again, thank you to Lisette. Thanks to her band. And thanks to everyone who is fighting the fight. Thank you.